I fell asleep on the couch, waiting while he does his thing. I woke up. The recruiter had a contract in my face, talk about, hey, sign this. Y'all can go to basic training together. Y'all do the buddy system. I was in. I signed it. Went
Oh
home.
man, recruiters, dude. It's like all that stuff that goes on your uniform. Everybody can buy it.
That's true.
Where did you grow up again, man? I don't remember.
So I grew up here in San Antonio, northwest side of San Antonio. Went to school there I graduated from O'Connor High School in Helotes, which was right outside of San Antonio, but now it's kind of like become San Antonio with the last growth over the last 2 decades.
Dude, San Antonio is going to be part of Austin in about 10 years.
Yeah, just that whole I-35 corridor.
Dude, all right. So you grew up, went to school there, like same house your whole life or what?
No, so my mother remarried when I was my freshman year in high school. So then we ended up moving to that side of town. Well, my stepdad at the time. And then I landed at O'Connor because that was a new school that was opening. So I was the second graduating class out of that high school, brand new campus for Northside Independent School District. You know, it was state of the art at the time. Every classroom had a TV, and that was the big thing at the time. And now things have changed to where every student has a laptop.
Dude, all right. So then what drove you to go to the Army?
So being in the Army is really just through my childhood, I've always had that dream to serve, but really no drive towards it. So in high school, I was in the Air Force Junior ROTC.
Oh, you guys were big enough to have that.
Yeah. Well, so that was my first year at Taft High School. So Taft was my freshman year. And then I moved to O'Connor my sophomore, junior, senior year. And so it was 1 year of the Air Force junior ROTC program, but I've always had military figures in and around my life. So that was there. The funny story on how I joined was, so it was 2001, right around the height of the war in Afghanistan, or no, before that. It was before that. And my friend at the time, Adrian, his older brother was in the Army.
So this was pre 9/11 or post 9/11?
Pre 9/11. Pre 9/11. So it was like February, March. So we're on the tail end of our senior year, and his older brother, Adrian, he talked him into joining the Army. And he went back to his dad and his stepmom at the time, and he's like, I want to join the Army. And his dad was very understanding, accommodating, hey, that's great, serve your country. The stepmother at the time was like, nope, you're not joining the Army. Just blew up. And he ended up coming to live with me and my parents.
So like the last couple of weeks of his senior year or what?
Yeah, so it was like the last, I'd say 6 weeks. He, conditioned that he was to finish school. And so it was like best friends, man. We were in the same roof, kind of like stepbrothers.
And got room for activities.
Yeah, so we went in, and he wanted to join the Army. And I was just like, whatever. So I took him on a Saturday morning to the recruiter. And he was talking to the recruiter. I fell asleep on the couch, waiting while he does his thing. I woke up. The recruiter had a contract in my face, talk about, hey, sign this. Y'all can go to basic training together. Y'all do the buddy system. I was in. I signed it.
Oh, man. Recruiters, dude.
They know what they're doing. So I signed it. I joined the delayed entry program for the United States Army, went home, told my parents. My parents were very, happy for me because I hadn't planned a route for what I was going to do after college. I wasn't fast tracking.
Were you accepted into college? So you like derailed a plan, or you didn't have a plan?
To be honest, I wasn't in school. So high school, it was always the mindset that, what do I need to pass? What's the bare minimum that I need to I just want to get through high school. I want to get a diploma. And I had that mindset. So I didn't excel in school. It wasn't something that was motivating me. I wasn't top of my class. I didn't have a plan to go to a big college. If anything, it would have been a community college first, kind of those steps forward. Went home, took my friend to the recruiting office. We ended up joining the Army together, flew out of San Antonio to Fort Knox. We got to the in-processing center. We were together for like a week, and then they did roll call, and he went one way and I went the other.
What?
Yeah. So he was a tanker, and I went in as a cook. So our MOS tracks, he went to a one-station training, so it was basic training and then tanker school. Me, I ended up going through basic training and shipping out to Fort Lee. So we kind of like looked at each other like, oh, what happened here? And
man, dude sold you a bad bill of goods, man.
It's funny that I look back on it now. No harm, no foul. The guy put me on a trajectory for life that I can't complain on.
Man, the recruiter I had we had a bunch of guys that came in, right? We were at the house, and we had like the Marine Corps came in, we had the Army came in, the Air Force guy came in, and they're all going, kind of giving their pitch, right? And so I wanted to fly helicopters, and like I didn't know about the high school, the flight school program, right? So long story short, I go to college. I'm joining the National Guard in college because it was paying, 1 weekend a month was like $150 a month or something per drill. But I had to join with the recruiter, and then I could immediately sign my ROTC packet. And this recruiter basically jacked up my security clearance, man, and like just filled it all out for me. It was all wrong. And so now I'm like commissioning, and they're like, "Did you join the National Guard?" I was like, "Yeah," thinking everything's fine. And they're like, "Why do we have 2 security clearance packets for you?" And I'm like, I don't know. So then they went back and they're like, how'd this go? I was like, I don't know, man. The recruiter just said, fill this out, right? And they're like, okay.
Sign here.
It was a whole deal, man. It caught up with me a couple of years later.
I think that's something you learn in life, is, you're responsible for yourself when it comes to your paperwork, your finances, and you learn and I grew up quick. So when I joined, I ended up going to basic training, left to Fort Lee. And then
Fort Lee, Virginia, right?
Yes, sir. And
where in Virginia?
Fort Lee. So outside of, I want to say Richmond. My memory serves me correct. And finished up my advanced training there, and then went to my first duty station. And I elected to go overseas. So I was a Texas boy with no jacket, flying to Germany in the middle of the winter time, and going to another country at such a young age and not taking a jacket. Hey, I don't need a jacket. What's the weather like in Germany? Man, there was snow on the ground. I hadn't seen snow, first time in my life. I'm looking at the plane window, and the plane stops, and I'm like, why are we stopping in the middle of the runway? And we got off, disembarked from the plane on the tarmac, and then got on buses because they didn't have a ramp for us to go to. And I was like, what is this stuff? And it's cold. And then next thing I know, I got a USO rep and a staff sergeant yelling at us to get in line and get on the bus and get your papers out, and culture shock. I was jet lag. It was a blur the first couple of weeks getting into the station in Germany.
Dang, man. So you were there in Germany 3 years, 3-year gig?
No, I did my entire career in Germany. So almost 8 years total. I was, so for stabilization for food service, they was like, hey, we need y'all here. Go ahead and re-enlist. We'll keep you here for a year. And then every time it came back up for me to PCS, I had the opportunity to stay at my station, which was good. It gave me that.
Where in Germany were you?
I was in Schweinfurt, Germany, so southeast of Würzburg. Trying to put it like maybe 2 hours from Frankfurt Airport.
Okay.
Small town. It was a huge town that was after the World War II that was settled, and the U.S. troops, stationed throughout Germany. So it was, at the tail end of the peak. When I left there, they were in the process of drawing down their footprint there in Germany, and then it eventually got turned back over to the Germans. But I loved my time in Germany. Once I got, situated and had free time was the key. I was able to get out and travel and see some of the historic castles in and around Nuremberg. I made it down to Oktoberfest in Munich. So some of those just huge life, check those boxes. I've been there, done that. I'm very excited and glad I have those memories.
Man, we went to Germany in 2007. A buddy of mine's dad lived in Heidelberg. And so I'd never been to Germany. In fact, it was my wife's trip to go see her uncle in the Netherlands. And I'm like, hey, we could swing down to Germany. I hijacked the trip, right? So we spent half our time in Germany. And mind-blowing to me, man. We were in Heidelberg. This dude was a Vietnam guy. He was a Green Beret in Vietnam for 3 years. Then they sent him to go be an officer. And then he came back as a helicopter pilot. So then he was doing missions as a helicopter pilot and partly as a Green Beret. So he's going across the lines. It's a crazy story. So we hung out there for 2 or 3 days, toured the castles, and then we went up to Berlin. And that was different, man. East Berlin, holy cow, man. Mind-blowing what it looks like now compared to what I imagined it would be.
Yeah. It's so different from the way of life here in the United States. And it just, I don't know. It was a great experience. I can say I've been there, done that, and, have great memories. And I'm glad I got to visit I'm glad I got to live in another country.
Were you an Iraq or Afghanistan guy from Germany? Probably Iraq.
Yeah. I was in Iraq. So I landed 1st Infantry Division, 18th, 1st Battalion, 18th Infantry. So we were a forward deployed unit. We stayed bags packed, ready to deploy. We were a rapid response unit for South America or South Africa and Europe. Then we got the call. So 6 months at my duty station, I got tapped to go to Kosovo. And we talk about eye-opening, like you just said. I landed on a tarmac in, I think it was Macedonia, and we got redirected mid-flight. We're touching down. I look out the window, and there's just bomb-riddled buildings, an empty city, and just like, whoa. Where are we? What are we doing here? Why hasn't anybody
20 years old?
Yes, it is 2021. Why don't I have any rounds for a magazine? Just like, whoa, where am I at? What am I doing? And it was just like, hurry, get on the bus. Had an MP escort through the city to our base. Grew up fast, seeing the world through a different lens and, trying to understand. So for me, with a lot of things is the why behind the what, why am I doing this? Why am I here? And it's taken me, well past my time in the military to even go back and look at why I was in Kosovo, why I was in Bosnia, to understand the whole picture of the ethnic battles between, people in that time frame and in that particular area of the world. So it's good to go back and try to digest that, because
not when you're 20, you're like,
yeah,
man,
get in that guard tower.
Going out.
Yeah, just go ahead and so a majority of my time in Kosovo, I got tasked for force protection. So I was on the gate letting people
who was cooking?
in. They had contractors. So we were oversight. So then they were like, well, the cooks are not cooking, so make them do something. So I had the opportunity. So really just been able to kind of step out of my role as a cook. I jumped right into a personal security attachment for the command team. So I was able to go on missions with the battalion commander, the XO, and got to know them. And it was a totally different mindset when I was exposed to, how to work a radio, how to drive a Humvee. We didn't get that experience in the field. So I got that crash course on the job training, and hey, this is how you set your battle rig up, this is that, and I learned a lot doing that deployment in terms of being a soldier. For us, it was just, hey, take the afternoon off, go to the range, qualify, come back, get in the kitchen. So that really opened my eyes to a lot of the different MOSs in the military and the combat arms, and so I had that afforded to me. So really just, and now going back and it's like, well, why did we do this or why did we do that? And kind of piecing the history together and why we were there.
So you came back, you were in Kosovo, what, 6 months?
6 months. So I was in station at my duty station for about 6 months. We left to Kosovo, came back, standard reintegration, time off, boom. 2 months after that, we were small arms training, back in the field, battalion maneuvers. And then they're like, hey, we're going to Bosnia. Okay. So we packed up, and so that was a little bit unique deployment because we were deploying to a NATO base that was under the control of British and Canadian forces. So we were there kind of just like as a guest to them. So we had to abide by, their rules of engagement and we were just there to observe and kind of just build those relationships and trust between NATO countries.
Were you cooking there or were you doing guard duty again?
So there, it was really, we were there, it was 4 to 5 weeks. Same thing. They had food service members and we just augmented behind them and helped them out. But then that was weird. And so I spent that time, a greater part of 3 weeks out of that 5 making box lunches for the American troops, because our guys didn't get to come in for hot. So we had to support them that way. But, just another great life experience in terms of being able to get out in the world.
So you come back, you go to, now you're about year 1, right? 6 months gone, come back for 2 months, gone for another 3 weeks, you said? And then back for what, another couple months?
Yeah, I would say probably 8 or 9 months. So we didn't get tapped to go to Iraq until February, I want to say 04. Because the initial wave went in 03 and we were replacing third ID when we went in. So when we came in, we were replacing third ID.
Okay. All right.
So still a little wild west out there. We came back. So we came back from Bosnia. We redid, training, reintegration, went to the field. Then we got tapped, pack your A, B, C bags, get them in the Connex. You're on rapid reaction force, or I forget the term. But we were on call for the Horn of Africa, the Middle East, Europe. So anything that spotted off, we were slated to go in 72 hours. And then we got orders to go to Iraq. So it was just fast moving. Then it came down. We had orders, we were preparing. Then I got called into the office, said, hey, changing plans. You're going to be going on the container ship with all the vehicles. So we were mechanized infantry. So Bradleys, Humvees. So we weren't light, we were mechanized. So then I got tapped to go on the container ship with all the equipment and got,
man, you're just chilling then, man. You're just kicked back. That was the place to be.
So, I go back, I look back, man, my chain of command was my first sergeant Sergeant First Class. They were great. They looked out for us. Got sent pre-deployment processing, asked to go get a passport. We did the railhead. We started moving vehicles, and I got sick. And I had tonsillitis. So I had to have my tonsils removed. So literally, we deployed in February, and I had my tonsils removed in January.
So you're that guy, man. You're that. Were you E4? Were you E4, E5 at the time?
E4.
Man, everybody's blaming you. Like, so Ray's got tonsillitis, man. Getting out of deployment.
And so no, there was no getting out of the deployment. I missed the window. So my alternate stepped up, took my spot. They always plan for contingencies in the military. So my alternate stepped up and ended up going on the boat ride from Germany to Kuwait. I was looking forward to it. Another great experience, life learning. Mm-hmm. Had, my outpatient tonsillectomy, recovered for a week, boom. And we started the deployment process to leave. Man, when we left to Iraq, we were overstrength for the battalion size. So I think our battalion was like 850. We were probably pushing like 1050. We had an extra 200 people because they overstrengthed us for rear detachment. They wanted to make sure we had enough troops. So if you were in a cast or something and it was going to be off in 6 weeks, you got deployed. They didn't leave you behind.
Man, that's a different time of the war, man. A year or two later, they're like scraping to get to 90%, man.
Yeah. So
tell us early.
Yeah. So we get there and we sat in Kuwait for probably 3-4 weeks waiting on the container ship, allowing us to acclimatize to the weather. Allowed everybody to get sick with, they called it the Kuwaiti crud, just the sinuses and the dust. And so they gave us plenty of time to adjust and get used to the weather, the climate. And we trained. Man, that was the first time had ever been to the desert. And I looked in north, south, east, and west, every direction for as far as my eyes can see. I couldn't see nothing. It was just like, hello, like, whoa, where are we?
Did you get on the bus ride? So, later, like 2005 time frame, you'd fly into the big airport in Kuwait there, and then they'd bus you for like 2 hours out to Udari. Were you on the bongo buses, or were you guys closer?
We landed in the airport and then we bussed out to the middle of nowhere. And it was just and I got to go back and look, and what I can't remember, but it was just a staging area for us. Plenty of space. So then we got tasked for food service. And this dining facility was probably feeding 10 or 11,000 meals 3-4 times a day. Dude. Crazy numbers. And I remember one night I was on the night shift and we would check in with the dining facility manager. Hey, we're extra bodies. We're here to help. And he said, all right, you're on fruit salad for tonight. What? Okay, no problem. Hey, shoot, move, and communicate. Go make fruit salad, right? That's what I do. They pulled out this pot that was probably as big as a freaking hot tub, right? And I'm like, cool. All right. So what are we doing with that? They're like, oh, we're going to fill it with cut up fruit. We're going to make fruit salad. And so then mindset, I was cooking for 900 to 1,000 people with, a cook strength of maybe 15.
Right.
And we come over here, we're feeding 10,000 and we have a little army of, local nationals and then U.S. military personnel. They start bringing pallets of fruit out, not cases, pallets. So apples.
For one meal.
For one meal. And I was just like, oh man. So I started that and I was like, I can't do this. So then I ended up like putting juice boxes in the fridge for 4 hours. Just a massive dining hall and it had probably 6 entrances, 6 serving lines, 6 exits, you name it. But we fed a lot of people because it wasn't just us. It was the whole division was there. So another life experiencing, that massive amount of food.
Yeah, that there's no reason when you're in those dining halls that like you don't roll out of there full, man. Like I remember going through the Kuwait chow halls, and I'm like, I don't even know how I'm gonna consume all this food, which is far cry different than when you're back home. I was at Fort Campbell, and it's like you can only have one boiled egg. You're like, dude, was there an egg shortage here? Like I'm always blaming the cooks, man. They're like, it's not me, man. You come from overseas, it's like whatever you want, man. Just rolling it out. I can't imagine making fruit salad at scale, though.
Yeah, and so that was a lot of like, so behind the scenes was food cost, portion size, the dining hall staying under budget, and so portion size, that was the food service officer driving that. And like, hey man, if you want to eat, get your one egg, go through the line, you done, come back through, we'll feed you again.
Yeah, cooks were always awesome, man. It's like, dude, you're like, come on, man, just want some protein, man.
Yeah, and so being food service when I deployed, I did personal security detachment. I was assigned attached to S3, so we ran the TOC and whatnot. We helped out there, but when we were in the field, man, we were we could be the biggest enemy if the coffee wasn't hot and the soup was cold, or we could be your best friend in handing out loaves of bread and peanut butter and jelly on the backside of the 5-ton to everybody.
That's it, man. How much time they want to give you, right? Where were you at when you pushed north?
So we pushed north. That was an experience in itself. We drove from Kuwait to Tikrit.
Okay.
And that was probably about 3 or 4 days of driving up MSR Tampa. And so it was that window, that transition time. So everybody was like everybody in theater had been there a year and a little bit over. So we were coming in to relieve. So there wasn't just us, there was Marine Corps. It was just, all these United States forces all fighting and competing for highway space with the local nationals. And it was like convoy after convoy after convoy. And it's like, we were in convoys that were maybe 200-300 vehicles long, trying to stay together. And
that's about the time IEDs were starting, I think, was kind of that 04 time frame. First year was all, it wasn't a thing. 101st, we only had soft side. So everybody had soft sides. They were hanging, bulletproof vests on the side for a bit. And then about that 04 time frame, and then 05, by 05, it was consistent IEDs, man.
Yeah. So funny story about IEDs. So we got in theater, did the left seat, right seat. We took over, and soft sides, 998 stripped down with the roll bar. We had the Kevlar like seat coverings, and that was it. Hardcore, infantry. We were like the big dog in the house, and we ran 3 vehicle convoy minimum to go out the gate. First night we took over the area of operation, we lost one of our company commanders and the driver. Exactly what you're saying. Soft side Humvee made a right-hand turn. They timed it just right, exploded on them. We transitioned to 4 vehicles, hardened the vehicles a little bit, but my battalion commander, man, West Point graduate from West Virginia, he stayed. When I talk about leadership, Colonel Sinclair and Sergeant Major, forget his name, it'll come back to me in a minute, but just phenomenal leaders. And I really saw a lot of their leadership skills being able to be on their personal security detachment. And they led from the front, in terms of in a combat zone. So
that was first unit casualties for you guys, was a company commander. And which was it? Platoon sergeant, you said?
One of the drivers.
Drivers.
Yeah. So they turned right into, night one of taking control of the AO, and it was expected, man. The enemy was going to try to poke the bear and see what they got, what kind of reaction, and we knew it, but we just weren't expecting it that quick. And we were transitioned right into, a little bit more aggressive posture. We changed up some things. We hardened the vehicles. And that's where I kind of came in. And food service, we were just running chow for the team. And then I got tasked. They came to me, they're like, "Can you drive a Humvee?" And I was like, "Yeah." "Can you drive at night vision?"
Man, I'm from
"Yeah."
Texas, man. I'll drive anything, right?
Yeah, and they look at "Can you drive with night vision?" I was like, "Yeah." And you're just like, just that I can do it.
Yeah, man, make it happen, right? No, it's a different skill set.
Different skill set, man. I had never drove with night vision. I didn't know. I didn't know. So I had to integrate myself into this team, and they all called me Cookie. They was like, "Oh, we got a cook on the team." But I earned their respect. I was out there with them. I was second vehicle in the convoy. I was cover vehicle for the battalion commander. I was radio relay on the long whip. And
were you driving monocular or were you driving binocular? Sorry, I'm still thinking about you driving, never having trained and driving in goggles.
They were the the two lenses, and it came to one. And then I was in an up armored Humvee. So then I was driving night vision with probably about 5 or 6 inches of bulletproof glass in front of me.
That's terrible, man.
Never drove without headlights. Didn't know the terrain, didn't know the vehicle.
It's an accident waiting to happen, man.
So then the colonel's driver, he was experienced but he was a buddy of mine. That's how I got roped into it. He's like, so we were good friends. Man, he would take off, and then I'm carrying this, heavy vehicle trying to just, kick in the diesel engine to catch up. But then the flip side of that is when I got going, it was harder for me to stop.
No, yeah.
I wasn't as nimble so the other 3 vehicles were all stripped down, roll bar, gun mounts on the back. And I had a gunner on mine, but we were the cover vehicle. And it was a big learning curve for me, man. And my staff sergeant, my TC at the time, was just like very patient, and he was very understanding. And he was like, "Look, we're not gonna throw you out, but we're gonna work on getting your driver skill to where it needs to be." And so, I learned a lot. It was a confidence booster for me. I got to, see a lot of combat action that I would not have otherwise seen.
Mm-hmm. How long did it take you to first get blown up?
Probably 3rd or 4th month. A lot of close calls. My sergeant major was wild, man. There would be like a box in the street, and he would go out and just kick the box, just like living on the wild side.
No, man, you miss a leg doing that, dude. At best.
And so there was one time that I had a roadside bomb detonate right as I was passing the intersection. Mm-hmm. And that's an experience in itself. And I don't talk much about my experiences in Iraq. I think right around like Memorial Day, Veterans Day, I give snippets to my wife, and she's very thankful and understands and supportive about it. But that experience where that roadside bomb went off, literally as I was driving through the intersection, you blow through the kill box, you set up a defensive posture, and then we get out, take our stance, and then the major looks at me, and he's like, XO's like, "Hey, I need 2, walk it back." And I'm just like, "You want to do what?"
That's right. Man, we just came through there.
And literally, so we took it, and my TC, my staff sergeant was like, "Let's go, Montanez, let's go." And I was like, "What are we doing?" He's like, "You take the right side of the street, I'll take the left side. Okay. We're going to walk it back, and we're going to check for secondary IEDs." And I was like, "On foot? Or we're going in the vehicle?" He's like, "No, we're going to go on foot. Use your light." And I learned quick. And that's an eerie feeling. You smell that explosive, and now you're walking through it. So.
Were you buried IED or were you surface mounted?
Both.
Both.
This one was so those big concrete planters that we saw in the crit, and they had it in there. And I recovered some of the shrapnel, and I still have it to this day in a box put away. Very, like, holy smokes, this is, that's when it's the real deal. We didn't have any injuries. I think one person caught shrapnel, put a Band-Aid on it, continued mission.
Old Forrest Gump, man, $1 million wound, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Man, I was an aviator, so we weren't driving on the ground much. It was flying over. You'd see that stuff go off, and you just kind of, as you know, right? We just circle overhead, put into a bank, kind of give thumbs up, see if you need to do immediate CAVSVAC, and if not, you just drive on. We'd fly to the next town, and man, you guys driving convoys all the time, just crazy, man. Just absolutely crazy. And that's where folks forgot, I guess, learned, right? Hey, it doesn't matter what your MOS is, man. You're a cook, you're an infantryman, whatever. And I don't think the American public knew that, right? They're like, what? You're a cook, man. Why are you getting blown up? And why are you on the road doing convoys? We're like, well, it's kind of how it works, man. It's how war works.
Yeah. And it's crazy. So we, through that year, we ran that AO. It was huge. And back to the leadership that we had, the colonel and the sergeant major were adamant about getting out, visiting the troops, hitting everybody at least once a week. So we covered a lot of ground. And then the burden fell on us, man. There was times that we would go spend all day, shaking hands, meeting, the police chief, and then we go see the mayor, and then we go see, some of the town, chiefs, and then we would go around and then it was like, all right, we're heading back in. Y'all got 4 hours. We're SP at 11 p.m. We're going out for it. And we would go out and so it was a leadership style where, like I said, they led from the front. So when Charlie Company was going to go do a raid, we were on site with them. We were there. There was a time that, you talk about aviators and the support that you had from the air. I had the opportunity to go into Samara. We lost the foothold there, and they took over. Insurgents took over the city, and that wasn't okay. So it was the area of operations that was next door to us. So command team put together a plan. They put together a strike force, and we drove from our AO into the neighboring AO, and we essentially had targets and assets that we wanted to seize, and we wanted to reposition the security forces and get the ground back. And that was some other direct combat, action that I had while I was there. And I've never seen or had the experience of a tank shooting around through a house right next to me. And so I vividly see that red flash, and I stopped and I was like, I'm not moving until I get told where to move, because I don't know what's going on. But when we talk about aviators, so that night we had a Spectre gunship on station with us, and talk about trigger happy, man. There was a building that we wanted to clear, but we didn't want to send troops in, so they were like, just clear it from the air. And
dude, those guys,
they just demolished probably the building, the whole block. So they didn't want to bring in the Air Force to drop a 500-pounder. They used the 105 and the 40 millimeter. And so we're driving off the area of operations, and they're still shooting, boom, 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 and just like enough.
Did they? We'd hit areas with those before we then go in and assault. And did you get to see the beam of God coming down on the target at all from them, or were they just lighting it up in front of you?
So we trained on that. So we had attached to us was a Air Force guy. He was an air ground coordinator, and and so when we pulled up on station, so we also had some special forces detached soldiers with us, and they were riding with us, and we pulled up on a building, and immediately pulling up on the building, my gunner starts ripping, like just letting go. I'm like, hey man, what are y'all shooting at? I can't see nothing, I'm driving. So like So right, so then he's traversed over my door, and he's shooting, and with the 240 Bravo, every seventh or eighth round is a tracer. So I just see this red stream. So I was like, well, I'm not going to step out that way, even though I have clearance, right? So I lean back in the driver's seat, and then I catch brass
all down the back,
all down my neck and my back, and then the next thing, being the truck driver, you have roles and responsibilities, and so the gunner starts screaming for ammo. And so I'm like jumping in the back seat, trying to get the ammo cans unlatched, throwing up the belt of 7.62, links are, brass is falling on me. Then I managed to get out of the vehicle. So everything's kind of stopped, the initial burst. I get out, flip my night vision down. And it was like a scene from Star Wars, all the lasers and everything. And it was just and then that's when the bullets started coming at me, and I was like, oh, this is real. And it really just makes you what am I doing here? Kind of that split second question, hey, and I didn't have, I was in more of a support role at that time, not a direct action, but, was ready to go. And we end up, spending a couple of days. They neutralized the threat, took over the building, brought in the Bradleys, brought in the tanks, and we cleared and hit the objective that we were there to do.
Different time, man. Then you roll back to Germany. Unlike everybody else, we're rolling home, and then you're going back to Germany to live the high life, man.
Yeah, so I wouldn't even say the high life, man, because we came back. So in 2004, reintegration, block leave, we did maybe 6 weeks of downtime, and then the training cycle started again.
Yep.
Just that vicious cycle. It was the ramp up of troops, and we got pegged again, 05, 06 to go back.
So you were 04, 05, and then you went back 05, 06, less than a month turn time, or less than a year turn time?
So the second deployment, I was tapped for rear detachment. So my E7, we were back to that being over strength. I was tapped to stay behind on rear detachment, run the chow hall, continue to maintain operations there. So 05, 06 was our heaviest casualties. That was the height of the war. That's when things,
Yep.
It was bad. And they pushed and pushed for us to deploy. So when we deployed, we did not, when I say we, but the unit, the division, or I'm sorry, the brigade, 2nd Brigade actually got into Baghdad and then was broken out. So we had spent a year training as a cohesive unit. Then Alpha Company went here, Bravo went here, and that kind of, put us at the mercy of the detachment. And we saw heavy casualties. I want to say 56, I think, in that 1 year. And so, on my end, that was almost a memorial service every week.
Yep.
And as rear detachment, we had to attend. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. So it was, emotionally draining. And then also, my heart broke for the guys that, I trained with. And, at that time I was getting ready, squad leader. I was taking troops into battle, under my leadership, and, I had worked with them and done all the pre-deployment, filled out their packets, made sure their information was correct. I had my leadership book, my binder, carrying that around, and, junior leader in the Army, and then I get tapped to stay behind. So that felt kind of bad. But I knew, mission first, just kind of fall in place.
That's tough though, man. I remember I was a 05, 06 guy as well. So it was, there's so much that went on. We can't even start peeling the layers back with different parts of the country. And, I remember coming back at Campbell and seeing, the infantry brigades and just the volume of casualties and families and, just figuring out that process. And thankfully I was, never a rear D guy. That was the worst, detail that people had to be on for everything you described. And man, my heart breaks for having to do that for those folks. And, I'm trying to do the right thing and honor them. But it does, you get almost emotionally numb to it. At some point when you're going to that many,
Yeah.
I mean, that's one a week, right? It's like you're not trying to, but it's like, okay, we're doing this. You kind of have to, figure out a way to deal with it because you can't internalize that volume of casualties in your unit, right? Like you can't own every one of those. So, all right. So that deployment finishes up, and then you're kind of at a decision space, I imagine, on what's going to, like what the future looks like the rest of the Army, right? Everybody's deciding in that time frame. How much longer am I going to do this?
And that was a huge choice. I was on the cusp of coming up on the end of my 7th year, almost 8, so end of my contract, and a lot of it was like, I how much more can I take? When is my ticket going to get punched? Or, it's just like that mindset. And there was no tap dancing around it. We were in a rapid recycle for deployments. As the rank went up on your arm, so did your, combat service ribbons, on the other side. So I made the choice to separate. And the unit was, at that time, as I was going out, deactivated and moved back to, what's that, Kansas? What's the base out there? Fort Riley. Probably, no, not Riley.
You got Riley and you got Leavenworth.
Yeah, Riley. So 1st Infantry Division, case colors, flew back to recased in Kansas at Fort Riley. We reflagged as, I think, 172 Infantry Division or Infantry Battalion. And that was kind of like the tail end of my Army time. So I started my processing out, cashed in all my vacation and just took terminal, or was it terminal leave? Yeah. Took my terminal leave at 86 days, and the company commander's like, I can't sign this. So then I had to go over to the battalion commander, who luckily was the XO at the time when we deployed. So he knew me very well. And, I was on vacation for 86 days prior to separating.
There's a 60-day cap. So you were getting a 26-day waiver to go. So it's a nice little pay, man.
Yeah. And so like day 80, I came in to like close out my room and I had a beard and everything. And they're like, well, what are you doing, guy? I was like, man, I'm on terminal leave. Don't even try to talk to me. And they at that time, they were in the process of like transitioning the units. And it's a lot of the Army restructuring battle units and trying to, make it more cohesive. And, because we had these big units and it wasn't cohesive to the battle rhythm in terms of deployments. So a lot of restructuring. I ended up separating, coming back to Texas.
Right back to San Antonio?
I actually dropped into Seguin with my mother and my stepdad at the time. Didn't have a plan. Didn't have any input.
Out, ready, like back home, like nothing has happened for the last 8 years.
Yeah, just come back and so I didn't have a plan. So I knew I was coming home. I came home and I didn't have a job. I didn't have a place to live. And, the Army just, bloop, spit you out. And I came back home and reestablished, stayed on my parents' couch for 3-4 months till I got back on my feet. And then worked through the VA, to, get my disability rating, got that squared away, and then kind of got into the workforce. And I was like, wait, what? And readjusting to life because it was different. It's not the cadence of the Army is different. So was working, and I had a buddy that had just gotten out of the Air Force, same time. And I was just kind of like, he was egging me to go to school. Like, go to school, man. Use your GI Bill. You can live off of that.
Yeah.
And so I ended up, starting my associate's degree, and then ended up finishing my bachelor's at Texas A&M San Antonio, with a degree in project management.
All right. Where were you work? What was your first job coming out then?
Schwann's, frozen delivery food, selling pizza and ice cream.
That was your first sales job ever?
No. So, all right. So I've, in sales pretty much my whole life. My first sales job was selling San Antonio Express newspaper door to door.
Okay.
And knocking on people's door. Hey, you want to buy the Express News? You want to buy the Express News? That was my first job.
All right. So you see the Schwann's gig, you're like, yeah, I can do that. That can't be, I'm not knocking on doors every day. Or were you?
I had a customer. So I had a route, probably 600-700 customers that I maintained, book of business. And it was different, and I remember getting out there delivering, part of it was a set delivery, and then, you would sell door to door. So I did that, and that lasted probably 4 months. And the manager that night was like, hey man, you were out sick on Tuesday, but I kind of need your help Wednesday night. And when they received their trucks, it was freezer to freezer. So it was a frozen 18-wheeler that backed up to the freezer, and it was cold unload. Well, I have some cold weather injuries from being in Germany, being in the field. So I don't fare too well when it gets cold. And I worked that night. I went home and I washed my uniforms, folded them very nicely, packed them up and brought them in. And I told him, hey man, I can't ever do that again. I was like, this is just, it's not for me. And
it's like, cold.
Well, and he's like, well, what's at the end? I was like, no, man. I was like, honestly, you got me, I go, this is just, it's not a good fit. And I respect that. I thank you for all the training and the opportunity to be out here, but I don't see this as a career. And then that's when I kind of transitioned to full-time school.
Okay.
And then kind of just went through the motions there. 30-something-year-old in classes with, 18, 19, 20-year-old college students.
Hey man, it happens.
It's just like, but then that's when it switched. And kind of to go back on what I was saying about in high school, I was like, well, what do I need to pass that mindset switch to, I need to take advantage of this and capitalize on it. So I ended up graduating with my bachelor's. So through my associate's degree and my bachelor's degree, my GPA was 3.89 through all my time in school. Sum laude, top of my class, just like put forth the effort. But that's because I had that little bit of life experience behind me. So
then what?
I was still working at Lowe's. So when I graduated, so my senior year in Lowe's, I had stepped into a leadership role. Went to my store manager. I was like, hey, look, I need days off during the week. And he was like, well, this is a retail job. I just can't. I was like, look. So I made a deal. I told him, I was like, look, I may need Monday, Wednesday off. I may need Tuesday, Thursday off. But I'm going to tell you what, I'll be here every weekend. And I sold myself to the manager that he would have somebody here every weekend, whether it was open or closed, as long as I was able to go to school. So that afforded me the opportunity to schedule those Monday, Wednesday classes. So I worked through my junior and senior year. I worked full time. I went to school full time. And when I graduated, my goal was to continue to grow with Lowe's. I was mid-level management at the time, pushing to get up into, senior management. That plan just didn't work out. The company made some changes. Changes is constant, and it's how you adapt to it in life. And I didn't see myself in that role too much more, and I landed with HD Supply. Gave them 2.5, 3 years. That was phone sales, and then I landed where I'm at today, my new home.
And what are you doing?
I'm a mortgage originator for New American Funding.
All right, man. Tell me about that. Tell me about that choice, right? Because now you got to pass the test. It's a pretty hard pivot from, HD to New American Funding.
It wasn't a choice or a decision that was made lightly. It was a decision that was made with my wife in terms of, where I wanted to be in terms of a career, kind of plant some roots down. So kind of backstory, my wife is a recruiter for Kforce. Onset of COVID, mortgage industry blows up. And there's underwriters, processors, loan officers, and that's all she's doing for 4 or 5 months, is trying to fill these roles for clients of hers. And then so just the conversation comes up. It's like, well, you're a people person, you like to sell stuff, and you'd be a great fit. So she coached me, and she pushed me towards being a loan originator. And I love my job. But being out of school for, a couple years and not having 1 ounce of like mortgage knowledge or understanding, just having bought a VA home loan in 2018, the process was just like sign here, sign there, sign here, sign there for me. So when I went to class, I took my 20-hour class or 23-hour safe class. I came home, and it was like an Excel version. So it was a Friday, Saturday test on Sunday. And I was like, whoa. And I was coming home. So I went Friday morning, went to class, came back, had dinner, and then locked myself in the office all Friday night till about 10 o'clock till I couldn't pack any more in my brain. Same thing Saturday. I ended up passing my safe test, and then the clock was starting, I need to sit for my national exam. And so then that was 2 months of studying, 2 months of working a full-time job at HD Supply, getting off work, playing with the dogs, coming back, putting in 2 or 3 hours. And I pushed through it and passed my exam and, landed where I'm at now with New American.
Awesome, man. Well, you've come a far cry different from where you started, right? You're like, I'm just passing this thing. And now look at you, right? Selling left and right, enjoying it. I imagine. So look forward to see what you're going to keep doing, man. Awesome.
Like I said, I feel where, I kind of like told you that before, I'm where I need to be. And I'm happy.
If you liked what you saw, click subscribe. Do it. Subscribe now. We'd love to have you stay engaged with us. More importantly, if you liked what you saw and you're ready for the conversation about purchasing or refinancing your home, give me a ring, 512-515-3956. Would love to have a conversation with you. Have a good one.